Hello, everyone. So, students who team up and then build robots, they compete worldwide nowadays, right? It sounds like, cartoon. It sounds like something like fictional, but it's actually very, very much real. And today at our Launchcast, we are welcoming here our friends Luis Batonyi, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Close enough.
Close enough. From Alberta Tech Alliance, and also Mr. Edgar. What is your last name?
Yajure.
Yajure. Amazing. By the way, Venezuelan name, right?
Yeah.
Love that. And then we're gonna have a very nice conversation with these two gentlemen. They're gonna further explain about robotics, talk about Forge Robotics, talk about maybe Alberta Tech Alliance at some point. So yeah, stay with us. Thank you for being with us today. It's exciting. Appreciate that much.
Well, thanks for having us.
Right?
Yeah.
So the first time I've heard about Forge Robotics, of course, was recently. So let's talk a little bit about that. Something happened recently. Before we talk about what robotics is, but I want to talk about that. So what happened last month?
Forge Robotics, we competed in the Pacific Regional Championship of the FIRST Robotics Competition, and we won. We competed against 24 other teams, and we that earned us a spot to go to the World Championship in Houston, Texas, where we competed and advanced to the quarterfinals of our division. So we were very proud of the kids in terms of their performance in both of those competitions.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we were representing the West, Canada West.
That is correct.
That's correct.
So there was 6 teams that qualified from Canada.
Okay.
We were one of 2 teams from Western Canada. Our alliance partner from the Canadian Pacific Regional event was the other representative at World Championships.
Okay.
So 3,000 plus teams competed around the world.
Oh, wow.
92 different countries. Out of that, 450 teams qualified for World Championships in Houston. And we were very fortunate to be one of them.
That's amazing. So all of that happened this year, a little bit of last year. How was that? Is that an entire year competition?
So the structure of the first competition is that while the format is set, so there are these sort of 3-on-3 games.
Okay.
The game itself is announced the first week of January of every year. So
got it. Okay.
Nobody knows what
First
the game
Saturday
is
of
gonna be.
every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have 6 weeks till the first competitions, and you have to come together to build a device that answers and can compete in that new challenge that is fresh for everybody.
So the challenge also changes every year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So you actually have to rebuild or adjust or adapt the robot for that. I'm assuming,
And they're very intentful on trying to sort of level out the playing field in as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So kids can't even sort of reuse parts from their previous year if unless they're purchased parts. So if everybody doesn't have access to them, you can't just sort of piggyback on what the year before you did to give kids a fresh opportunity to build something new.
Okay, but are those competitions the competition rules, or is that something? Because if you can use something you've done last year, right?
Only if
You can use the concept, the design. You cannot pre-build prior to kickoff day. So
okay,
you have
got
to
it.
start on kickoff day, and you have to start from scratch. So your drivetrain, your manipulators, the design, the strategy, the prototyping, et cetera, et cetera. So it's from scratch. And
you have 6 weeks,
it's-
as you said.
So it's usually 7 weeks prior to the first competition week, and then whatever competitions you book into. This year we did a week 1 and a week 5 event.
Okay.
So there's several weeks of competitions. One of the interesting aspects is you asked about, is there rules?
Yeah.
This year, the manual for the entire challenge, the robot, safety, etc., was 312 pages.
312 pages.
So they get into a lot of detail. Much of it is carried over from previous years.
Absolutely.
What types of components you can use, how you configure them, etc. So, and then there's the game-specific portion of the manual, which comes out each year.
Oh, wow. And then, so let's go back a little bit, right? What is FIRST Robotics and what is Alberta Tech Alliance? And if you can divide between the two of you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, maybe I'll start off just to lay out the history.
Okay.
So in 2012, we had a young gentleman by the name of Alex Rodriguez who wanted to compete in FIRST Robotics Competition. So FRC is the acronym for it.
Okay.
It's a level of competition for grade 9 to 12, so 14 to 18-year-old students. Sorry, 13 to 18-year-old. And it was his rookie year. He started the team. They did really well. They actually ended up in the championship playoffs.
Wow.
As part of an all-Canadian alliance. Mm-hmm. And the team at the time was Team 4334. It was the genesis for everything that Forge is now and Alberta Tech Alliance Association. The name
at
of
that time, the Alberta Tech Alliance Association did not exist.
The association didn't.
Okay.
ATA did. So Team 4334 was actually 4334 ATA, or the Alberta Tech Alliance.
Got it. Okay.
In 2015, I started the nonprofit organization to handle the back end. So the money, the registration, insurance, organizing parents and students to get to and from competitions, find a build space, all of the aspects that the students really shouldn't have to worry about, because they're really more interested in building a robot and learning about that aspect of it, and strategy and programming and all the different aspects. So Alberta Tech Alliance came about in 2015, and that is the umbrella nonprofit that now runs. This year we'll have 2 FLL teams, which is the junior level. Then we'll have 2 FTC teams, which is the First Tech Challenge. Sorry, FLL is First Lego League. FTC, First Tech Challenge. So those are grades 7 to 12. And then the senior team, which is Forge Robotics, is grade 9 to 12.
Okay.
And to take like a half step back too, so we keep talking about FIRST. And so that organization that is an acronym of like for inspiration and recognition of science and technology.
Wow. So FIRST is actually an acronym.
And so that organization,
Get it.
their intent is to sort of elevate STEM education to the level of, collegiate sports in the States. Not necessarily collegiate, but it's like, let's give this, this nerdy kids that like to play with programming and building robots a spotlight and a scene where they can be, the rock stars of these events. And it's amazing. Like at the World Championship, you have like, a stadium with like 30,000 people cheering.
Well, I saw the photos. It's just intense, man. So many people and a lot of players. That's something I've noticed also from the photos. So sorry. Recently, of course, you've been there. Were you there? And it was Houston, right? You said
that was in Houston, Texas this year.
Were you both there?
Yep.
Yeah. So how many teams were competing at that space?
450 teams.
450 teams.
And the way they divvy it up is they have 6 divisions.
Okay.
And the divisions were divvied up into 75 teams each.
Okay.
And then you compete in a qualification round within your 75 teams. And then out of that, you get a first, second, third, fourth place, etc. And then to go into playoffs or the elimination round, it's 8 teams compete against each other, alliances of 4 robots each. So team 1, the first place team, can pick their first alliance partner. It's a serpentine style of selection process. So team 1 goes first, and they pick, and then they go down through to team 8, the 8th alliance captain, and then the 8th alliance captain picks 2 robots, and then it circles around and goes back up to 1, and then from 1 it goes back down to 8. So you end up with 4 robots on each alliance. So 32 of the 75 robots in the division now compete.
Okay.
We competed into the qualification round. Unfortunately, our alliance partners had some challenges, and we were knocked out in the first round. But anytime you get to compete in eliminations, it's a win.
It's already a win.
Yes, it is.
For sure.
Especially since we positioned 60th.
Oh, wow.
So we were, out of 75 teams, we were number 60.
Goes, I mean, to bake in a little bit of the sort of FIRST philosophies, there's this whole idea of cooperation. Okay, so it is competitive, and we're there to win, but you're not there to demolish other teams, right?
Got it.
Like and so that is reflected in the way that teams get formed too, right? Like the qualification phase, it is random. It is random 3 on random 3, right? You essentially, there's just a draw, and you get to play with 2 other strangers and make a team that it's like playing pickup, right?
Yes.
Against 3 other random teams. But then it would be, you get ranked for how well you do in your competition, and it would be too discouraging if then you allowed, okay, then the best 4 teams are going to form, one alliance to compete,
okay.
and then the next 4 are going to the other, and then it would be too lopsided. So that snake draft just sort of allows you to keep that balance, right?
Because the focus is not the competition per se. That's you're saying.
Exactly.
So okay, what is, besides the competition, I understood collaboration, and I will assume here a lot of learning, right? For everyone.
Every moment of every day.
Especially for the kids, right?
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, but before going into that, I really want for the audience to understand also who you both are and how long you've been associated with that. So Lou, let's start with you, right?
Sure.
How long have you been associated with the robotics team?
So I've been involved with FIRST Robotics since 2014.
Okay.
My son came home one day from school and said, "Hey, there's this really cool presentation at Club Day, and there's this robotics team, and I really want to get involved in it." And I said, "Heck, yeah, let's go in." That first year, I was a parent. I got involved a little bit. That was an interesting year because that year the students really didn't want any help from adults.
Oh, really?
They wanted to build their own robot, and they did. And they built a very good robot, and they ended up in semifinals at World Championships that year and lost out to the eventual World Champions. They were the only team that year to actually beat the World Champions in one match.
Oh, wow.
So they were part of a very good alliance that season. And that kind of planted a seed with me, but I think the seed may have been already germinated and growing in my son. And I could see it happening, so it was, I'm going to help out. So from there, I helped out by starting ATAA,
Okay.
the nonprofit, to worry about the back end stuff so that they could build robots, go get money and sponsorship,
Absolutely.
which is so very important to our organization. And then started getting a little bit more of the bug and going to the competition,
And kind of infecting other people.
organizing the teams. 2016, we had an incredible opportunity. We were invited to go to China
Wow.
as a
okay.
team to compete in an international invitational event there. So organizing that to get 32 people over to Shanghai and get a robot there and tools and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where I've been helpful. And then my background, I have various backgrounds in mechanical and electrical.
Okay.
So I help out with a little bit of the mechanics on the robot and some design work and et cetera. And to this day, I think it's been a huge part of my life. My son has graduated from the program.
Oh, wow.
He went through and did 2 years at SAIT and got his mechanical engineering technologist certificate there.
Wow.
And he's working for a local company doing destructive testing.
How many years have you been involved with the association? From the short,
So-
when you started with ATA and then became an association?
So this will be year 9. for me.
It was 9 years already.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And your son was involved at the first.
Yeah, he was involved
first
for the
one.
first 3 years.
The first 3
And
years.
he's actually stayed on for a couple of years after that as a technical specialist to help out with knowledge transfer to the students. And this year he's coming back as a junior mentor.
See?
So our program's designed that we want to keep a little bit of, we want to allow them to still interact with the team, but not in a mentor role. Because they're still young people at that point in their career. And they also need to focus on their own school
Absolutely,
and jobs and life. So instead of getting re-immersed in robotics, we prefer that they take a little break, so to speak, and then after a couple of years come back, and if they're so inclined, start to pay it back to the next generation.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a whole program, and it has an outstanding, life cycle here in terms of, you learn and then you give it back. Also, congratulations for that. That's
Thank you.
9 years. That's a long time. Edgar, a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved? When did this start?
So I've been involved with FIRST actually since 2015, in a similar situation, but we have kind of three plus one kids. So we have 3 kids, but there is a nephew of mine who sort of culturally, has been like one more of our children. Like we love his parents and his family is great, but they're more sort of artistic folk, right? So when it comes to fueling his passion for programming and robots and building stuff, we sort of played that.
You kind of
part.
adopted him in that sense, right?
Yeah, in that sense. So Churchill High School, like a lot of these teams are run by schools, right? So when Churchill High had a team, I mentored with them to help them advance, and we won the 2015 Western Canadian Regional.
Also, it happened before also.
The not the Pacific Regional. So Calgary used to run a competition in town too, which was the Western Canadian Regional, not the Canadian Pacific Regional.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So we won that in 2015, and
they beat us.
We did.
Cooperation.
Right? Cooperation. That's the term.
And,
Alberta won. That makes sense? It was Alberta that won at the end? Because it was Alberta team. Teams from Alberta, right?
Yeah, so that was the Robonautic Bulldogs, which was the Churchill's team. So an Alberta team that won that Western Canadian region.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so then when so Aiden, those school teams tend to kind of hinge around a very dedicated teacher, right? Because it's a second job, right, to run one of these school teams. So so that person was burnt out, and the team didn't continue. So my nephew actually came to ATA. So once that team was no more, then the year after, and he was part of that Shanghai experience, and we were helping them, but more sort of an arm's length condition when he went off to university until my kids became of age. So they did, now that you remember that this first part is sort of the parent organization. So my kids did that first Lego League for like 4 years.
Okay.
And so they did. It's the same sort of thing, a little less, head-on competition. Each one, sort of, you perform your tasks on your own, right? Because they're little, and you don't want to put that much stress on these kids. Got it. But now that they became of age to, play with the big robots, then that's when I became involved with Forge, and now we were part of that.
So one thing that's going to happen today, we're going to also have a conversation with the students, right? So, and I want to hear your perspective, because from what I'm understanding, there is a lot of value that you're bringing to the students, right? You're talking about young people, right? So eventually they will continue their careers, maybe as engineers, maybe as software developers, or whatever it is in tech. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, just Luis, from your perspective, how is that? How do you see that happening?
Well, maybe just let me talk about one thing that happened, and it was the one thing that it stands out in my mind every time I talk to people about robotics, and it revolves around one of our students, and he joined our team very quiet. I think that first year, I may have heard 20 words out of his mouth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very, very quiet. But he was really involved, really intense, constantly wanting to learn. And he went through the program 3 years, started in grade 10, finished in grade 12. And we were at our year-end wrap-up party. And my wife was sitting next to this young man's mother. And she broke down in tears.
Wow.
She just lost it. So my wife was consoling her and asking her, what is it? What? She said, 3 years ago, my son had been diagnosed by 2 separate doctors and given different mental diagnoses. And they were prescribing drugs, and they were recommending he go to a special school and all this sort of stuff. And he found out about the robotics, came and joined our team. And at the end of that 3 years, he was one of the most normal, engaged kids I have ever met in my life. He would talk to anybody. And she was just so happy that he had the opportunity to find the organization, find his people, the other students, the collection of nerds and geeks.
Exactly.
And just become a person that people could relate to, and he could relate to them. So it's just this evolution. And for me, that's probably the most poignant story about what we bring to these students. And that's his is an extraordinary story. But
Absolutely.
I've known a lot of these students from their grade 9 to grade 12, and some of them now going through, one of our students is now starting his medical internship, one of the original students.
Wow, okay.
So there's just all of this stuff going on, and you see the results at the end of it and what it means to them and their parents and siblings and friends.
Absolutely.
And the companies they work for and the world.
It can impact them, the families, close ones, and everything else. And I can see how it impact also your lives, right? Because you became emotional. Love that. That's a very inspiring story.
Yeah.
A real one. Lovely. Edgar.
And it is a bit of a first motto that we don't use kids to build robots. We use robots to build kids.
Wow.
Right. So
wow. That's
it's that is the name of the game.
That story
right?
tells everything. That's
Yeah,
the thing. At the end of the day,
to see the potential in these kids,
at
right?
the end of the day, it seems that, building robots, it's just, how can you say that? It's just a means to an end. That's
It is, for
sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Means to an end.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So he shared an amazing story. Do you have any similar stories like that in terms of impact, even your nephew or your kids?
Yeah. So, in terms of, igniting that passion for tech, my nephew Aiden, he went on to study software engineering at the University of Waterloo, and now he's working in tech finance in Wall Street.
Wow, man.
That was the a fundamental part of his path, because there is this interplay too, that obviously we do what we do for developing and allowing the potential in these kids to flourish.
Absolutely.
But industry pays attention, right? So the like employers and like industrial players in all scales know that the kids that come out of FRC have this experience and have this drive to, build and imagine and turn ideas into reality and persevere against pretty substantial difficulties. Like these, it is not an easy thing to, turn an idea of a machine into a working, high-performing, high-pressure device, right? And so they going through that and coming out the other end makes them, a very attractive candidate to draw into this company. So they're quite actively looking for them, and it is something we're very proud of. Is the the opportunities and the draw that these kids find, in part because, we put in the effort to help them realize their full potential, right?
Wow. So Louis and also Louis, actually, right?
Louis.
And Edgar, inspiring stories about how, the Forge Robotics team, the Alberta Tech Alliance, they are impacting not only their lives, but the families' lives, their lives, right? Also, so it's pretty exciting. So coming back here, I want to finish this episode talking about sponsorships, partnerships, and support. So the first thing I want to ask you is that you mentioned about the government supporting right now this year with a very interesting grant. Louis, can you talk more about that?
So we put together an application and sent it off to the Alberta government, and they gave us a grant. And so we have 2 years that we're going to run a program. The first year is to train women as mentors for the FIRST Tech Challenge, the FTC League. And then they are going to be expected to go out and start teams. And our expectation is that we want to have 2 all-girl teams competing in FTC. This season would be wonderful, but it's getting a little bit close. So hopefully next year we can get that ready to go. We have the application process open right now for teachers, any woman that wants to get involved in mentoring a girls' team so that they can compete in FIRST in the FTC League. And it's available on our website, ataarobotics.ca, and just go in and fill out the application. And there's some commitments to make, of course. Mm-hmm. The training is free. The training is free. The training is free.
Wow, awesome.
The program is not that intense. A lot of it is pre-work at home.
Okay.
Beforehand, and then we'll have 2 sessions in our build space here in Calgary, where we'll bring them in and give them the hands-on, and some of us will be involved with them directly through the training so that we can give them our mentors' perspective of what we do to help out, to help the students evolve. So that's a really exciting opportunity for us to spread the word and hopefully get that percentage
you got it.
A little
Absolutely,
bit more
yes,
closely.
We need that.
Because there's a lot of men involved, and that's wonderful, but we need to get more women involved.
Absolutely, love that. So to just make sure that our audience knows how to do that, so they can go to your website. By the way, we're going to put in the description, so it's going to be easier. So it's ATAA robotics.ca. Okay, so that goes directly, and then of course on YouTube right now the description, and of course on our link, and then you're gonna be able to find that the link so you can go directly. So just make sure you take a look. I'm assuming there's all the information is there.
The
right?
information is on
and
there.
And they can subscribe. So not subscribe, but register right away.
Yep.
It's not register. How do we call that? Apply, right?
Apply. Apply.
That's the right word. That's really good. Congratulations for the initiative, and then congratulations to the government, because this is a very good grant. Awesome. So, please?
Yeah. So that to, some lessons and highlighting stories are not always sort of the happiest, but to underscore how important the support and our sponsors are to the operations of this program. So I won't sort of mention the names, but Calgary, we had an all girls robotics team for FRC.
Nice.
And they had very dedicated volunteers and had a really good team, and they were really trying to help the girls get as far as they could, but their resources, like my daughter was part of that team, right?
Okay.
But their resourcefulness was so strained that it was hard to have a space where they could work, and to have the resources to sort of build these robots and to get them really engaged in having an end result where they would really draw them in. And so a lot of they might survive, but they're almost just disbanded, right? Because of that that other sort of supporting orchestra that is behind these kids, right? Like you need both parts, right? Like it is their participation, but having, you know, a supporting cast and having sponsors that let organizations have the money to allow them to be and do their robot building is crucial, because it is a delicate, complicated machine, right? So that it succeeds and prospers.
Yeah, absolutely. So on a segue to that, so we talked a little bit about government support, right? Amazing grant. So excited for that. But if we can talk a little bit about how private companies can actually support and how important it is that companies do that and sponsor that. If we can continue to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, you know, running these programs takes a fair bit of money, and we depend on those sponsors. Like all of us mentors are volunteers, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is a cost that we don't have in terms of the manpower to help the kids run the program. We do charge a fee, a membership for the kids, but it's quite nominal, and it doesn't anywhere near cover the cost that it takes to run this.
Not at all.
So our
got it. I'm assuming sometimes it will go out of volunteers' pockets or maybe leadership.
So as an example, our competitions this year, we did 2 regional events and champs. That ended up costing us $15,000 US.
Wow.
Just as the registration fee for those 3
Just
events.
the registration
That's just
fee.
the registration fee. That didn't
Wow.
pay for any parts for the robot. It didn't pay for any travel. It didn't.
Absolutely.
It was we could show up and our number was on the roster to get in the qualifications round. So that's just one cost.
That adds up with
And
everything
we
else.
have a build space to maintain, because we have an all-year program. So we have a year-round build space that we operate out of. So there's costs around spaces. Then there's, of course, parts for the robot. Our robot budget this year was $12,000 Canadian, just for parts to build the robot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that. And the majority of that money comes from our private sponsors.
Okay.
Launch Code, and I mean, I got a whole list of them on my back, because our team proudly wears the names of our significant sponsors everywhere we go.
And we want to make sure that we're going to show all of them, just for you to know.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we
to
appreciate
honor all of
that.
them. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we are super thankful for your contribution and your help, and to allow us to be part of these kids' lives, right? And build them up.
It has been an honor for us, for sure. Okay, so, but not only companies, you need volunteers, you need more people. And I didn't ask, but how many people are involved with the ATA and the robotics teams?
So right now we're looking at about 80 to 90 kids across the 5 teams for the upcoming season. And we have a mentor team of 23 right now. And we have a board of 6 people. And yes, we are constantly looking for volunteers, in-kind donations. If people have materials, one of the local polycarbonate suppliers here in town gives us their scraps, which we can then turn into robot parts.
Absolutely, yeah.
So all of that sort of stuff, we're always looking for somebody to help us out. And we get generous donations in that sense, but it's never enough.
Of course.
Because we do want to be a competitive team. We are a competitive team, and we want to be even more competitive. One of the things we find that really does light a fire in the heart of a young person is winning.
That's for sure.
You know, if you win, that really gets them going. Along the way, you will have to take some losses, though.
Yeah, of
There
course.
will be failures, and we encourage every one of our students to fail as much as they can.
Absolutely.
Because they will be the real winners at the end of that.
And
So sponsorship, yes, please.
Okay. So sponsorships, donations, volunteers,
Yep.
anyone that can
Go to our website,
dedicated that.
send us a note. We'll find a spot for you.
So before we finish this conversation, any last remarks from both of you?
So I think that we need to acknowledge Launch Code's kind of multi-pronged support to what we do, because in that sense, Launch Code is not just a check writing sponsor, right? Like Yes, you do, and we're very thankful for your cash contributions to the team. But also, several of our mentors are Launch Code employees.
They do. They
and,
are.
And the programming element of building the robots it's crucial, right? So having their dedication and their contribution to our program is essential, and the fact that you have come to hire some of the graduates from our program, it's part of that culture too, that hey, this is a space where the sort of things that I learn in Forge Robotics is in demand, and we're being drawn to that. So it's definitely a very fruitful and relationship that we want to continue for years. So
that's really cool, Edgar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a fruitful partnership for sure. Louis, any last remarks before we finish?
I think the future is really something that is important to us, and creating an environment with sponsors and with the community, the other schools, the other teams in our area. One of the things we do is the lead mentors. We all get together a couple times a year just to share stories and support for each other. So our team is not in isolation and secretive about what we do. So and part of those discussions is the future. Where are we going with this? What can we do to make it better for everybody? How can we get more teams involved? How can we bring back some of the teams that have been around in the past and ran, into some challenges, financial space, whatever, and how can we support them? So for me, I think the real focus for the next couple of years is the future. How can we make this bigger and better and get more students involved and more mentors and more people, so that down the road we build our support for the tech industry. Tech in Calgary, it's a focus.
It is.
We want to be part of that.
Yeah.
At the board level, we have a big hairy goal. Every organization's got to have one.
Uh-huh.
And we want to have a robotics academy.
Oh, wow.
That is focused on bringing students in and giving them that opportunity. Not necessarily a full-blown education, but something focused in that STEM area, so that we could be part of that tech revolution that is underway right now here in Calgary. So the future.
Absolute, the future. And you folks play a very important role in that future for Alberta, for sure, for Calgary, for sure, and especially for all of these kids, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where they're gonna go, right? They're gonna keep, as you mentioned, some amazing stories in that. So, look, thank you so much. So for you that watched all of this, I want to make sure that you can follow up on that. So go to their website. It's adaarobotics.ca. You can find the link in the description. So make sure that if you just wanted to take a look at what they do, send them an email, whatever it is. Maybe you can volunteer. You're gonna find a place for you. If you're ready to donate, you're more than welcome. They explained here why this is so important. And if you're a private company or for CEO, watching right now, or a C-level or director, or someone that has influence, or even an entrepreneur, you can support, right? I mean, we're very proud as Launchcode to support that, as they said, not only financially, but also now we have amazing talents here that came from the robotics team. But you can do that. Go to the website, send them a message. I'm pretty sure they're going to reply you in the meantime. Thanks for watching this episode. Louis and Edgar, folks, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Such a nice conversation. Appreciate it. And good luck. And keep counting us. Cheers. Thanks. Thank you, guys.